Many people believe that working longer hours leads to greater productivity. However, research consistently shows that extended work time can reduce overall efficiency and increase burnout. This means your current approach might be limiting your success and well-being without you realizing it. By the way, this channel shares one thoughtful insight like this every day. If this perspective is useful, consider subscribing. In recent years, predictive models have become a cornerstone of decision-making across industries, from finance and healthcare to law enforcement and marketing. These models, powered by advances in machine learning and vast amounts of data, promise to anticipate outcomes and guide choices with unprecedented precision. Yet, as these tools increasingly influence critical real-world decisions, the limits of their predictive power have become more apparent and more consequential. One significant challenge with predictive models lies in data quality and bias. Since models learn patterns from historical data, any biases or errors in that data get embedded into their predictions. For example, predictive policing algorithms trained on arrest records can disproportionately target minority communities, perpetuating systemic inequalities rather than reducing crime. This highlights the ethical and social implications of relying heavily on such models without critical evaluation. Moreover, the complexity of real-world systems often outpaces the assumptions embedded in predictive algorithms. Many models operate under the premise that past trends will continue, but in dynamic environments, sudden shifts or rare events, often called black swan events, can render predictions invalid. For instance, financial models failed to foresee the 2008 economic crisis because they underestimated systemic risk and interdependencies. This limitation warns against over-reliance on predictions without incorporating expert judgment and scenario analysis. Another implication concerns the transparency and interpretability of predictive models. Highly complex machine learning systems, such as deep neural networks, function as black boxes, offering little insight into how they arrive at their conclusions. This opacity can hinder accountability, especially in high-stakes domains like healthcare, where understanding the rationale behind a diagnosis or treatment recommendation is vital. Efforts to develop explainable AI aim to bridge this gap, but remain an ongoing challenge. Finally, the automation of decision-making through predictive models can displace human intuition and experience. While models can process vast datasets faster than any individual, they lack contextual understanding and creativity. For instance, in marketing, predictive algorithms might optimize ad targeting but fail to capture emerging cultural trends or emotional nuances that a human strategist would notice. This suggests a hybrid approach where human expertise complements algorithmic output may yield the best results. Beyond these concerns, the deployment of predictive models raises important questions about accountability and legal responsibility. When an algorithm's recommendation leads to a harmful outcome, it can be difficult to assign blame or seek redress. For example, if a loan application is denied based on a credit scoring model that inadvertently discriminates against certain demographics, affected individuals may struggle to challenge the decision. This legal gray area calls for clearer regulatory frameworks that define how predictive tools should be audited and governed. Furthermore, the continuous feedback loop created by predictive models can amplify errors over time. Since many algorithms update their predictions based on new data generated by their own decisions, any initial bias or mistake can become self-reinforcing. In social media, recommendation engines that prioritize engagement may inadvertently promote sensational or misleading content, distorting public discourse and polarizing audiences. Recognizing and mitigating these feedback effects is crucial to ensuring that predictive systems contribute positively to society. In addition, the widespread adoption of predictive modeling influences workforce dynamics and skill requirements. As automation of routine decision-making accelerates, demand grows for professionals who can interpret model outputs and integrate them with broader business strategy. Conversely, roles centered on judgment without data literacy may face obsolescence. This shift underscores the need for education and training programs that equip workers with the ability to critically evaluate algorithmic insights and maintain a human-centered perspective. Lastly, the environmental impact of large-scale predictive modeling merits attention. Training complex machine learning models, especially deep learning architectures, consumes significant computational resources and energy. As organizations pursue ever more sophisticated predictions, the carbon footprint associated with data centers and cloud infrastructure increases. Balancing technological advancement with sustainability considerations is an emerging challenge that will shape the future development and deployment of predictive analytics. Another dimension to consider is the potential for predictive models to stifle innovation and creativity within organizations. When decision makers rely heavily on algorithmic forecasts, they may become risk-averse, favoring strategies that align with historical data, instead of exploring novel approaches. This conservative bias can limit experimentation, which is often essential for breakthrough innovations. For example, a company that uses predictive sales models might focus only on products similar to past winners, inadvertently overlooking disruptive ideas that don't fit existing patterns. Additionally, the uneven accessibility of predictive technologies can exacerbate economic and social inequalities globally. Large corporations and wealthy nations have the resources to develop and implement advanced models, gaining competitive advantages that smaller firms and less developed regions cannot match. This disparity risks creating a digital divide, where benefits of predictive analytics are concentrated among a privileged few, while others lag behind. Addressing this imbalance requires policies and initiatives that promote broader access to data, tools, and expertise. The intersection of predictive modeling with privacy concerns is another critical area. Many models rely on collecting and analyzing vast amounts of personal data, raising questions about consent, data security, and individual autonomy. For instance, health-related predictive tools may require sensitive patient information, which, if mishandled, could lead to discrimination or breaches of confidentiality. Striking the right balance between data utility and privacy protection is a complex challenge that involves technical safeguards, regulations, and ethical standards. Moreover, the rapid pace of change in data and technology can render predictive models obsolete quickly, necessitating ongoing maintenance and updates. Models that once performed well may degrade as user behaviors, market conditions, or social contexts evolve. This lifecycle management demands continuous monitoring, validation, and recalibration efforts, which can be resource-intensive. Organizations must recognize that predictive modeling is not a one-time implementation, but an iterative process requiring sustained investment. Finally, the cultural implications of embedding predictive models into daily life merit scrutiny. As algorithms increasingly shape everything from content consumption to hiring decisions, societies may become conditioned to accept algorithmic authority without question. This shift risks diminishing critical thinking and skepticism toward automated outputs, potentially eroding democratic discourse and individual agency. Encouraging digital literacy and fostering a critical mindset about technology's role in decision-making are essential to preserving informed participation in societal processes. Building on these cultural concerns, it is important to analyze how predictive models influence social norms and behaviors. When individuals know their actions are being monitored and anticipated by algorithms, they may alter their behavior to conform to perceived expectations or optimize for algorithmic approval. This phenomenon, sometimes called algorithmic conformity, can reduce diversity of thought and expression as people prioritize actions that align with data-driven norms rather than authentic preferences. For example, content creators on platforms like YouTube or Instagram might produce material that fits trending patterns favored by recommendation algorithms, potentially stifling originality and niche interests. In addition, the global reliance on predictive technologies raises questions about geopolitical power dynamics. Countries that lead in AI research and predictive analytics can leverage these tools for economic, military, and diplomatic advantage. This technological asymmetry may intensify international competition and create new forms of digital colonialism, where data and algorithmic capabilities are concentrated in the hands of a few dominant actors. For instance, access to advanced predictive health analytics could determine which populations benefit most from medical breakthroughs, deepening global health inequities. Furthermore, the integration of predictive models into critical infrastructure introduces vulnerabilities to cyber attacks and manipulation. Adversaries could exploit algorithmic weaknesses or feed false data to disrupt predictions, causing cascading failures or misinformation. For example, tampering with predictive maintenance